Hello everybody! Welcome to Creating the Basic Adaptable Game Engine Library, Part 17, Game and Screen Class Design. In the last couple of videos, you learned about Javafx, a framework provided by Java which allows us to make Windows-based applications. Not only did we create a window, we also learned how to use a class called Canvas, and how to draw images on that canvas. Also, how to set up a loop that runs 60 times a second and can be used to move images across the screen. It's everything we need for basic animation. In this video, we're going to start the process of creating a reusable class to add to our framework called Game. The Game class will take care of a lot of these tasks, so that way, it just becomes quicker to implement games later on. So the game class, which we'll describe in this video, is going to handle all the Javafx related tasks. It will create the window for us and manage all those classes we learned about, like stage and scene and pane and the animation timer. It'll handle all game related tasks, including drawing sprites to the canvas. It'll handle the game loop and related tasks. But the game class itself will be an abstract class. The game class is meant to be extended by specific instances of games. For example, we'll create a Starfish Collector class to extend the game class. When we work on other games later on, we'll create an Asteroids class that extends the game class, a breakout class that extends the game class. And within this game class, to provide support for our game framework, within the game loop, not only should it draw all the different sprites, it should also update the game-related logic. And before it does that, it also needs to initialize all the different sprites we need. So any class which extends the game class should also implement these two methods. Initialize will take care of setting up the sprites, and update will update the sprites. So we'd also kind of like this to be an abstract class, that it gets extended, but we also want to implement two methods. For this reason, we're going to create an interface called Screen, and in that interface, there will be two methods, initialize and update. The game class will implement this interface, meaning whenever we create a game, it must implement these two methods. Which makes sense. If you don't have these two methods, you haven't truly defined your game. And there will also be some helper methods to set the title of the window and the size of the window. And that's the idea. To get a little bit more specific, let's now take a look at the Java documentation before we dive into writing code. So let's open that up. And here we go. Now we have a few new classes. Well, but first let's talk about the interface, the screen interface. And so we know the game class is going to implement this interface. Basically, it contains two methods. The method initialize will set up all the game objects used by that screen, and then the update method will update those objects. And that method will be called by the animation timer 60 times per second whenever possible. Of course, if you have thousands and thousands of sprites, it might not get to that speed of 60 times per second, but for the games we'll be making in this video series, it'll definitely hit that target. So that's called the screen interface. Next, we'll turn our attention to creating a game class. Now the game class is going to extend the Javafx application class, and it's also going to implement the screen interface. So within this class, we'll have a constructor. Let's take a look at the different fields we'll need. As we've seen before, we need a canvas. That's the area where the game graphics will be displayed. We'll need a graphics context object that contains the methods to draw our game entities on the canvas. We'll have one group, which will be the root collection for all our different objects in the game. You might recall that group contains a collection of entity objects, where entities are other groups, so we can nest groups within each other, or individual sprites. Finally, we'll also need to store a reference to the stage hosted by the window. We'll need that for things like setting the title and changing the size of the screen. See, the methods that we have, there needs to be a start method. Because this extends the application class, as we learned before, all applications must have a start method. And within the start method, we'll do things like initialize the window, we'll call the initialize function, which sets up the game objects, and it'll also activate the game loop for us. And again, two helper methods, one called setTitle, which sets the text that appears in the window title bar, and setWindowSize, which not only resizes the window, but resizes the canvas contained within the window. So that's a useful method to have as well. So those are the fields and methods we're going to need in the class game and the interface screen. And in the next video, we'll start writing the code for this. That's the plan. Thanks for watching.